everyone? Welcome to the FanDuel Punch-Out. I'm BigIdly42, joined of course by Josh Shepardson at BChad50, and we've got some interesting developments tonight. We've got a game in Coors Field with a 300 over-under. I mean, we've got some elite pitchers in great matchups. We've got some elite pitchers in bad matchups, and even better, we have some bad pitchers in bad matchups. So, nice 11-game slate tonight. Going to be a whole lot of different lineups we see tonight, especially with some of these big totals. So I'm excited to get things going. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, this is quite the slate. I can certainly say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited more for this slate than I have been for one in quite some time. So let's go ahead and get things kicked off with the best pitcher that this generation has seen, or at least the younger generation, we'll say. Clayton Kershaw tonight, $11,300 at the Milwaukee Brewers, who just so happen to be the 30th ranked team against left-handed pitching. And I don't know if you were aware of this, but there are 30 teams in Major League Baseball. So that means they're the absolute worst. Josh pointed out 25 weighted runs created plus against them. I mean, all the factors are here for Kershaw to just destroy this lineup. I mean, they can't touch lefties. He's the best pitcher in the game. It could be a bloodbath tonight in Milwaukee.
Yeah, and he's a huge betting favorite. I mean, huge shocker there. But the seeds are planted for something special to happen tonight with Kershaw. And yes, he's the most expensive pitcher on the docket, but he's easily the best cash games pick. And the number that he could put up makes him worth rostering in GPPs too. I mean, he can put up a monster total tonight. And I'm a big Kershaw fan. I think you can get creative. As we go through the show, you'll find some nice punt options and cheap plays that can curb some salary and find out that he is definitely rosterable across all game types tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I've already made a tentative cash game lineup that I like with him that we were talking about before the show. And, I mean, just to further the Kershaw point, I mean, he's going up against Kyle Loesch, who's a right-hander. Just so happens to be that Clayton Kershaw's offense is the best team against right-handers. So you got the best offense against the bad pitcher, worst offense against the best pitcher. I mean, all hell is going to break loose if the Dodgers don't run away with this one tonight.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, number 2 pitcher here, excuse me. We have Felix Hernandez, only $300 less than Clayton Kershaw, and I think that you and I are in agreement that he just makes for a tournament play in this scenario. I'm thinking Arizona already. I'm getting ahead of myself. The Los Angeles Angels have been 28th in the league against right-handed pitching. Albert Pujols is back. Felix has been having a great season. He had the one-down game last time out. But, like you pointed out, he's not a substantial favorite in this game. He is on the road. Matt Shoemaker, it's a little bit confusing of a line to me because Shoemaker has gotten rocked his last 2 times. But as we know, Seattle a better offense at home than on the road. So he's still a fine play, but I just don't see any way you pay for him instead of just paying an extra $300 for Kershaw.
That's where my head's at. I mean, I'm not picking against Vegas here. Vegas has Kershaw as a monster favorite. Kershaw actually has the softer matchup, has the better offense backing him. Seems to be the bigger lock for the W. And while both have, the cathedral high ceiling that you look for in games, I can't spend, in good conscience, I can't spend $300 less on Felix when I could get Kershaw with just all the better variables, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a guy a few spots down here that you are a huge fan of, and I'm a fan as well. Another one of those guys that flies under the radar, mostly because of the team he plays for. So who you got here is he's not even necessarily a dark horse. He's just a great pitcher and a great matchup that no one talks about.
I swear it's not just beard love, but Dallas Keuchel at $8,500. I can't see any reason to not use him fairly heavily tonight. I'm actually probably going to be splitting my cash games lineups almost dead down the middle between Kershaw and Keuchel. Dallas Keuchel's $2,800 less than Clayton Kershaw. He and Kershaw have been jostling back and forth all morning for the top billing as the biggest favorite today. So you're looking at a monster betting favorite. Doesn't have the strikeout upside of Kershaw, but at FanDuel, that's not really as important. You really just need that W. And the $2,800 you can save using him gives you some serious flexibility putting your roster together and getting a piece of some of these high totals. I mean, there's numerous teams today with 4.5 team run betting total. So, I mean, there's definitely expected to be some runs scored. You're going to want to get some pieces of those guys, and Keuchel allows you to do that. Obviously, the ceiling isn't as high as Kershaw, but at $8,500, he is a steal.
I mean, this guy's been so good. He's allowed 7 total base runners in his last 17 innings. I mean, you look, and these are good offenses, too. I mean, at the Padres, 3 hits in 8 innings. At Oakland, complete game, 2 hits, 2 walks. Versus the Angels, 2 hits, 3 walks. I mean, the guy's been just ridiculously good. Legitimately one of the better pitchers in the game this year, just without that high strikeout upside. So I hate to do it, but I mean, I'm seriously considering making a second cash game team, splitting my action, and getting that $3,000 discount with Keuchel on a second team, because I mean that's hard to pass up. And but I also can't stomach not having Kershaw in this matchup in my cash games. So it's going to be a tough decision moving on tonight. But I'm with you there. I mean, I think he makes for a great play. Elsewhere at not first base, man. I'm just too excited to get talking about all these hitters too. But elsewhere at pitcher, I mean, there's obviously some guys you've got that are tournament options. No one that I'm particularly in love with here. I mean, if you're looking straight down, you got a guy who, this will be a low-owned guy. He's been great. He has problems before with home runs and fly balls. He's starting to mitigate that a little bit. Jake Odorizzi, $8,200 against the Boston Red Sox. Yes, Boston is one of the better offenses in the league. They're 10th against right-handed pitching this year, but Odorizzi has been great this year. Struggled a little bit against the Yankees last time out. Gave up 9 hits. But before that, I mean, 3 hits, 5 hits, 2 hits. I mean, he went versus Boston 6 2/3, 3 hits, 3 walks, 3 Ks, 1 run. I mean, wasn't a tremendous performance, but he's had some success against this team already, and he's my dark horse candidate for GPPs tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if the fact that Kershaw and Hernandez are, I mean, it says something about them that really we're not talking about Madison Bumgarner, Jordan Zimmerman, Tyson Ross, because they're essentially non-options today for the most part. All fantastic pitchers, but Bumgarner and Ross are facing each other. Low total, but going to be tough for either one to be a definitive favorite and a guy that you can feel comfortable with getting the win. Zimmerman, big favorite, but $8,900. I'd rather pay down to Keuchel. Zimmerman doesn't have so much more strikeout upside that it's really worth going and spending $400 more on him. And then when you pay up to a guy like Bumgarner, why not just pay up a little bit more and go ahead and grab, Felix or Kershaw? So I just think the price points are funky in terms of trying to go away from the obvious options today. My tournament guy, a guy that we talked about before the show, is Carlos Martinez. Going to be low owned because the Cubs offense is good against right-handed pitchers, but they do have a tendency to strike out quite a bit. Martinez has been pretty efficient with his pitch counts so far this season, so there is some upside there, but again, he's only $100 less than Dallas Keuchel. I'm probably rolling with Keuchel in some GPPs to get the extra bats in my lineup at $8,500. There's just so much you can do.
Yeah, and I'm with you there that Carlos Martinez is the only other pitcher really on my radar. So there's your pitcher breakdown. Now let's get on to some hitters here. Obviously, you got your massive total in Coors Field. Everyone's going to be targeting that, but FanDuel looks like they did a great job tonight of pricing up the guys who are in the tremendous spots there. So kudos to them on that. But I mean, you've got some good options at catcher once again. I mean, you're gonna hear this once again like you always do from Josh and I. Stephen Vogt at $3,000, gonna be top option if you could pay for him or very close to it. If you aren't playing Madison Bumgarner, Derek Norris is really good against lefties. He's been hitting the ball really well over his last couple games as well at $3,000. A nice swerve off of Vogt, who should be a popular play tonight. And Yadi Molina is at minimum salary. The guy's not hitting well, but if you're going to fit Clayton Kershaw, which I'm trying to do, I know a lot of people are trying to do, you need to punt somewhere, and I think that Molina's, a well above average hitter still at that price tag.
Yep, and he gets a lefty. He gets Travis Wood tonight. Definitely a favorable matchup for him. The only other name I'm going to throw in there is Evan Gattis at $3,400. Hammers lefties, big power, good GPP play because he has that favorable ballpark, and Russ Detweiler is just dreadful against left-handed or right-handed batters, so he's another guy that's in play for me. But those are really the only 4 names that I'm looking at catcher as well.
Yeah, and Gattis is on fire right now. 4 home runs in his last 3 games, so I mean, he's priced up, but he's priced according to his recent hot streak. So you can definitely look at him in some tournaments with some massive upside, like you mentioned. Speaking of upside, and by that I mean price and points, Paul Goldschmidt. I think we saw Troy Tulowitzki at $6,000 the first week of the season, but $6,100 for Paul Goldschmidt against a bad lefty and Tyler Matzik at Coors Field. Obviously in a tremendous spot, but I mean, if there's not a chance in hell you can make a legitimate lineup with him and Clayton Kershaw tonight. So I know you made one, you said, with Dallas Keuchel you felt comfortable with, but I mean, if you're paying up, we're talking elite options at pitcher, there's no way you can get Paul Goldschmidt.
No, and really, Goldschmidt should probably be reserved for GPPs, again, with Keuchel, because what you're looking for there is low ownership based on the $6,100 price tag and just a gigantic ceiling. I mean, there really isn't a hitter with a higher ceiling tonight than Goldschmidt, but in cash games, there are so many other options at first base that award you a very high floor. You really don't need to pay $6,100 for Goldschmidt, and you just can't do it with Kershaw. Yes, you can do it with Keuchel, but I think that you're better off spreading your money out. Just using an example from before the podcast that we talked about, you can pay $6,100 for Paul Goldschmidt, or you can pay $8,800 for Justin Morneau and Corey Dickerson. So $6,100 Goldschmidt and a $2,700 outfielder, or Justin Morneau and Corey Dickerson. You do the math. I'll take two bites of that apple at Coors Field as opposed to one with two well above average hitters. So I just don't see the point of using Goldschmidt in cash games. Just not worth it at the price. But in tournaments, obviously getting some differentiation out there, not the worst play.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And right below him, I'm not even going to say a step down. This is more like a small ledge. $1,800 down to Adrian Gonzalez at $4,300, who I will be getting myself quite a bit of exposure to against Kyle Loesch, who has allowed 8 home runs on the season, 2 to lefties, 6 to righties. Obviously, Adrian Gonzalez is a lefty here, but I think this is a great matchup for him. I expect the Dodgers, and I know you do as well, so does Vegas, to score a lot of runs tonight. And Adrian Gonzalez is going to be a guy that I'm going to probably, if I'm paying up in my cash games, I'm going to swerve off of Justin Morneau, and I think I'm going to go Adrian Gonzalez tonight to be a little bit different.
Yep, that's a fine play. We talked about a couple of value plays before the pod. Freddie Freeman at $3,400 against Aaron Harang looks pretty good if you're looking to, again, save some money and squeeze Clayton Kershaw on your roster. And then going way down the list, at the bare minimum salary, we've got Ike Davis against Phil Hughes tonight. Hughes much better against lefties than righties, but you know Davis will probably hit 5th. Davis very good against right-handed pitching. A viable punt play. I mean, $2,200 for a well above average hitter. It just doesn't even feel right, and gives you some creativity when you're getting your Clayton Kershaw rosters together for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there. One other cheap guy I want to mention, this is more of a cash game play, doesn't have a lot of upside, but when he faces a bad righty, I don't mind targeting the cash games, is James Loney at $2,500 against Clay Buchholz tonight. Buchholz, as we know, I mean, he's an okay pitcher, but he's not great against lefties or righties, so I don't mind picking on him some tonight.
Yep, I'm good with that.
All right, second base, Jose Altuve against a lefty and a bad lefty. If you can get Jose Altuve at $4,900, click him in, get him in. If you can't, but you still have some money left, D. Gordon, I know you love, I love. We were just gushing over his numbers over the last 2 games. I mean, you're looking at 10 plate appearances, 6 hits, 3 walks, 4 runs, 3 stolen bases. And I mean, that's with 0 extra base hits. I mean, the guy is just filling up the stat sheet in every possible way. And $3,800 still seems too cheap for him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, his strikeout rate is reduced substantially this year, and for a guy with his speed, just putting the ball in play is often good enough, and it's not a surprise that he has a high batting average, not a surprise he has a high BAPIP. It's not all fluky. I mean, granted, he's not going to maintain the BAPIP he has now, but when you're that fast, you're going to post above average BAPIPs year in and year out. Just get the ball in play, and D. Gordon has gotten that memo, and it's fitting him very well. $3,600. I like Robinson Cano a bit. Always like Cano against a righty. Still like Matt Shoemaker's diminished velocity in terms of grabbing some Mariners lefties. We talked about Howie Kendrick before the podcast. If you're getting Dodgers, he hits in a favorable lineup spot. Kyle Loesch has been roughed up a bit this year. Miller Park, good ballpark for offense. Dodgers are expected to score runs, so Kendrick looks good. Depending on if Aaron Hill is in the lineup or not in the lineup, got to mention anybody that's under $3,000 at Coors Field. Righty against Tyler Madzik, who struggles with right-handed batters. So even if he hits down order, not the worst. It's cheap exposure to that big total. But I would expect that if he is in the lineup, probably going to be a popular play just based on that huge total.
Absolutely. And if you are paying up and you wanted to get Coors exposure, DJ LeMahieu did lead off a couple times recently, so only if he's in the leadoff spot, I wouldn't mind it, but that's really just strictly lineup position and trying to get exposure to Coors. I much prefer guys like Kendrick, Gordon around that price tag. All right, moving on to third base, where Nolan Arenado is heating up at just the right time to either fade him or get him in all your lineups for tonight at $4,300. Another thing we were talking about right before we came on, where he's swinging a hot bat, but at $4,300, if I'm paying that type of price today, I can get Adrian Gonzalez at $4,300. There's other guys at better spots, I think. And it's not that it's a bad matchup, but Josh Collminter has actually been pretty good this year. He's only allowed 1 home run on the season. That's not to say that he's going to have success in Coors, but if I'm paying that type of price tag, it's going to be for a better hitter than Arenado.
Yeah, if I'm paying that price for Arenado, it's going to be when he's facing a left-handed pitcher. I'm not going to get him in a righty-righty matchup. Yes, he's at home, so he has that going for him, but I think there's better options. Maybe not at third base. Third base really does stink tonight. Chris Bryant still seems cheap at $3,500. Carlos Martinez, tough on right-handed pitchers or right-handed batters, but Bryant's a fantastic hitter and underpriced. Alex Rodriguez against Dickey. We know if Dickey if that knuckler's not knuckling, it's really just a meatball, and Alex Rodriguez can put a hurting on those. The guys that I'm really looking at, there's 2 third basemen that I'm going to be rostering very heavily tonight. Yasmani Tomas, who hit 5th yesterday against the lefty. He's at Coors Field, and he gets Tyler Madzik, which, as I've said before, Madzik, terrible against right-handed batters. Tomas should be a really nice play. And $2,800 Kyle Seager against Matt Shoemaker. Again, diminished velocity from Shoemaker, so I want to get a piece of him with some left-handed batters, and Kyle Seager at $2,800 fits that bill.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Seager's going to end up being my cash game play at third base. I mean, he's just too underpriced for that matchup against a pitcher who's really struggling. And to feed more into Tomas, I mean, Tyler Matzik walking almost 15% of batters. Been a big downfall of his throughout his career. So maybe we see what we saw with Miggy a couple days ago. Just go ahead and walk Paul Goldschmidt 4 times and just make everyone else beat you. Because if I'm the Rockies, I know that sounds crazy, but you take your first base, Paul Goldschmidt. I'm not letting him beat me deep.
Yep.
All right. Either way, maybe that's why I'm not a coach. We'll see what kind of lineups we see tonight. But that's the way I would be going. Sorry, Paul Goldschmidt. You don't get swings tonight. Moving on to the shortstop, Troy Tulowitzki, $5,100. I guess an okay righty, but in Coors Field, yes. And it is a righty, not a lefty. He's reserved for Coors Field stacks for me. No way I can pay up that price here, despite a favorable matchup. It's just too much. I mean, 17 or to the next player who's actually playing tonight, $1,900 drop off. So.
Yeah, and I mean this comes back to the same thing that I said about Arenado. If I'm paying that price point for Troy Tulowitzki, he better be facing a left-handed pitcher, and he's not. He's fantastic against righties at home, but I think you can do better for $5,100. You can spend elsewhere. You can divvy up your money in a much better fashion than that. A couple shortstops I do like. Marcus Semien, shocker, I'm sure, to the listeners. He's been better against right-handed pitchers this year. Hit him in the minor, so it's not a surprise he's finally figuring it out at the big league level. The important thing is Phil Hughes struggles mightily with right-handed batters. It's a weird reverse platoon split for Hughes, but it's a substantial one, so I don't mind a piece of that as long as Semien continues to hit second. But my favorite shortstop on the night is $2,500 Johnny Peralta against Travis Wood. Typically hits 5th, so you get that all-important top 5 lineup spot. Wood not very good against right-handed batters, and the price point is just so good at $2,500. And I'll let you touch on one name that we talked about before the podcast. Really hoping he hits in one of the top 2 spots in the lineup because the price point and variables are so favorable.
Yeah, that's Chris Owings. I mean, it's a good, cheap way to get yourself some exposure to Coors Field. We've seen him hit second before, as you know, right ahead of Paul Goldschmidt. So obviously some potential. You get on base, you score some runs. He batted 6th last time they faced a lefty, which was yesterday. So, I mean, a little bit concerned there. But at the same time, at $2,800, if you can get a guy that is batting near the heart of that order against a bad left-handed pitcher, even if he hits 6th, I don't mind him tonight in my cash games. For me, it's probably going to be between Peralta, who you mentioned, Owings if he has a good lineup spot, and then Jimmy Rollins at $2,700, who hasn't been hitting as well as these other 2 guys. But, I mean, I expect big things from those Dodgers. I mean, just get him on. He's coming home.
Yep.
All right, moving on here to the outfield where we got some expensive guys once again. So it looks like FanDuel really starting to tighten up the pricing, which we thought wasn't going to happen, but it has today. But pound for pound, if I'm paying up, it's got to be Corey Dickerson tonight at home against a righty. Same old song. Get sick of it if you want. But, I mean, he's got to be dollar for dollar your top option up top.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a big part of the reason why I'm not spending on a Troy Tulowitzki or a Nolan Arenado, because for $4,800 you get that left-handed batter that's facing a right-handed pitcher. You get the favorable platoon situation. You get the same great ballpark factors. You get that huge total. And Corey Dickerson hammers righties, especially hammers them at home. So he's easily my top play in the outfield. His teammate, leadoff hitter Charlie Blackmon, 4,300, looks pretty good. As I said, if you're not using Clayton Kershaw, you want your contrarian pick of the night in the outfield. Carlos Gomez, only $4,100. Probably not going to be priced that low for long. Great power speed combination. Took Kershaw deep the last time they played, I believe. He's just such a good hitter. Not going to get tons of exposure to him, but keep in mind, almost nobody's going to be rostering him against Kershaw, and understandably so. But if you want that contrarian pick that maybe can set you apart, he looks pretty good. $4,100 Mark Trumbo. Trumbo hammers left-handed pitching. Madzik, bad. Trumbo probably going to hit cleanup behind Goldschmidt. Great lineup spot, great park factors. I will bypass a guy at $4,000 that I know you want to gush about. $3,900 George Springer, 4.5 betting total for run total for the Astros. Righty against Detweiler, you know the deal. Jock Peterson, $3,900 against Loesch. Lots of outfield options. We can keep going on. Carlos Gonzalez against Cole Mentor, another lefty at Coors Field. I really like A.J. Pollock at $3,700, especially if he's hitting leadoff or second tonight. Who else do you want to name? Because there are just option after option after option in the outfield tonight.
Yeah, there are a ton. Going back to the guy you mentioned at $4,000 that I really like tonight, I don't think a lot of people will be on him due to his matchup with Madison Bumgarner, but at $4,000, Justin Upton, I mean, the guy has massive ceiling. We're talking as high of a ceiling as anyone. 3 of his last 8 games have at least 12.75 fantasy points. So, and I mean, we're talking one of those games, he didn't even hit a home run. He went 3 for 4, scored 3 runs, had 2 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, had a double dong game 7 games ago. Last night, 3 hits, home run, 3 RBIs, 2 runs. This is a guy that can legitimately do it all, and he's sincerely underpriced at $4,000 despite a tough matchup in a pitcher's ballpark.
Yeah, and he's another guy that great tournament play because he's going to be so low owned. He's going to give you that that edge if he does happen to go yard off of Bumgarner or maybe even more conceivably off of a reliever. It's not like he's going to see Bumgarner for all of his plate appearances most likely tonight. So you get that exposure. If he does happen to reach the seats, not going to be a lot of ownership. So you're going to have a nice little edge there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking down cheaper here, I know there's a guy at men's salary, Seth Smith, that you're a big fan of.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's against a righty, he usually bats first or second. I think it's been second the last few times. So he's going to have a nice lineup spot. Matt Shoemaker's gotten roughed up his last 2 starts. So if Seattle gets to him, Seth Smith, a great target at minimum salary. I'm going to talk about my boy here once again. Hopefully he gets a good lineup spot. And these, I'm not going to use any names, but you know who I'm talking about. He should be batting first or second. Kevin Kiermaier is $2,300, and he's still just hitting the ball. So get this man a lineup spot, or I'm going to have to come down there and get him one.
Yeah, and I mean, going $100 more if you want to go chasing taters and the GPPs. Chris Carter, $2,400, typically hitting 5th for the Astros against lefties. So more cheap exposure. And then look and see how that outfield is configured for the Dodgers tonight, because you've got Andre Ethier at $2,800. You've got Alex Guerrero at $2,800. Definitely get some Dodgers exposure tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. One more guy I want to mention who's been really flying under the radar, but he's been having a great lineup spot, right around 5th or 6th in the lineup, which isn't ideal, but considering his price tag, Kevin Pillar. You look at his recent logs, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 2 hits. The guy's getting on base. He's scoring runs in that Blue Jays offense. And Chase Whitley had a fine first start, but not a guy that I'm scared of. So if you want to get yourself some exposure to him and Rogers Center, I think Pillar's a good way to go. Yeah,
the price is right.
Yep. One other guy I want to mention, Scott Van Slyke at $2,500 in tournaments. Obviously, he's better against lefties, but Kyle Loesch is just not good at this point in his career. So, I mean, if he's in the lineup batting around 6th, I'll definitely get myself some tournament exposure there.
Yeah, definitely. Keep an eye on that Dodgers outfield situation, because basically all of those outfielders are in play, depending on who is starting tonight.
Absolutely, and that's going to wrap things up for us here. Check us out on Twitter at DF Cafe. A ton of great content for this great slate tonight at dailyfantasycafe.com. We'll see you guys tomorrow.